favor us, your servants, whom you have called to the performance of important trusts in these islands. Father, let your blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands, and of those whose interest you have committed to our charge. And this we beg in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Please be seated. Confirmation of minutes. Vice President Karen Bell, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the minutes of the meetings of Wednesday, the 29th of May, Wednesday, the 12th of June, and Wednesday, the 26th of June, 2024 be taken as read.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the minutes of Wednesday, the 29th May, Wednesday, the 12th of June, and Wednesday, the 26th of June be confirmed.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The minutes are confirmed. Thank you, Vice President Karen Bell. Item number 3, messages.
There's a message, Madam President, from the House of Assembly, and it reads, "To the Honorable the President and members of the Senate, the House of Assembly returns herewith to your Honorable House the accompanying public bill entitled the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024, and informs your Honorable House that the House of Assembly has concurred with the proposed amendment to the said bill as suggested by your Honorable House in the following area. In Clause 2, in the new Section 5, subsection 4, delete the words "or to imprisonment for 12 months or to both such fine and imprisonment."
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Item number 4, reports of committees. There are none. Item number 5, announcements. Senators, I have 2 announcements. I wish to announce that in accordance with the provisions of Section 24.1 and 24.3 of the Ombudsman's Act 2004, a copy of the Ombudsman for Bermuda Annual Report, which covers the period the 1st of January to the 31st of December 2023, has been forwarded to me as the President of the Senate, and that copies of the said report are hereby tabled in the Senate for the information of senators. Senators, you can access a copy of the report on your tablet and or the parliamentary website. My second announcement is, Senators, I wish to announce that in accordance with the provisions of Section 24.2A and 3 of the Ombudsman's Act 2004, the Ombudsman for Bermuda has presented to the President a copy of his special report for the Ombudsman of Bermuda's own motion, Systemic Investigation, entitled, "For the Record, an Investigation into the Disclosure of Spent Convictions in the U.S. Visa Applications." The said special report is hereby tabled in the Senate for the information of senators, and senators, you can access a copy of the report on your tablets and or the parliamentary website. We also have announcements from other senators, and the next one is Bermuda Sports and Anti-Doping Authority. Is that the one you're going to do? Minister Darrell, Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sport, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam President. I hereby present for the information of Senate the Bermuda Sport Anti-Doping Authority 22-23 Annual Report, and senators may access copies of the report on their tablets or the parliamentary website.
Thank you, Minister. The next announcement is in the name of Senator Ariana Hudson, Junior Minister for Finance. Senator Hudson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I hereby present for the information of Senate the audited financial statements for the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission for the fiscal year ended 31st March 2020, the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission annual report for April 1, 2020 through the 31st of March 2021, the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission annual report for April 1, 2021 through the 31st of March 2022, and the Bermuda Casino Gaming Commission annual report for April 1, 2022 through the 31st of March 2023. And of course, senators can access copies on their tablets and on the parliamentary website.
Thank you, Senator Hudson. Item number 6, notices of motion. There are none. Item number 7, petitions. There are none. Item number 8, statements. The first statement is in the name of Senator Reverend Dr. Emily Gail Dill, the Junior Minister for National Security. Senator Dill, you have the floor. Oh, beg your pardon. Oh, she said she doesn't have. She doesn't have her statement. Oh, I was because. Yeah. We'll go on to the second statement that senators will go on to the second statement, and that is in the name of Senator Leslie Robinson, the Junior Minister for Public Works. Senator Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank,
Yeah, they can come in here.
thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I am pleased to advise on the final chapter of the merging of the two government Quangos, the West End Development Corporation and the Bermuda Land Development Company. Madam President, on Friday last, Lieutenant Colonel the Honorable David A. Burge, OBE, MIL, EDJP, MP, Minister of Public Works, tabled the West End Development Corporation Amendment Act 2024 in the other place. This is the culmination of 6 years of hard work by this PLP administration. Madam President, some Senate colleagues may be aware that in July 2022, the minister announced some decisions relating to the operational changes at the Quangos under the remit of the Ministry of Public Works. Those changes were, number one, in September 2018, a freeze on all new hires was issued to all three Quangos, these being the West End Development Corporation, WEDCO, the Bermuda Land Development Company, BLDC, and the Bermuda Housing Corporation, BHC. Number two, effective November 1, 2018, the then BHC General Manager, Major Barrett Dill, assumed management responsibility for the BLDC as interim CEO in addition to his responsibilities at BHC. Number three, effective November 1, 2018, as well, the BHC CFO, Mr. Mark Mello, assumed financial responsibility for the BLDC in addition to his responsibilities at BHC. Number four, the BLDC board remained intact and continued their work under the new management team. And number five, effective January 29, 2021, the WEDCO general manager assumed responsibility for BLDC as the interim CEO. Madam President, please allow me to recount the genesis of this entire initiative. In July 2002, the then cabinet decided that Central Policy Unit should complete a review of 17 Quangos, which focused on the following objectives. Number one, determine whether Bermuda's Quangos, as currently constructed, are meeting government's aims, and if not, recommend methods of achieving alignment. Number two, determine whether there is accountability to the government, and if not, recommend an adequate structure to accomplish this. And number three, develop mechanisms for ongoing review. Madam President, the scope of the review covered a wide range of topics covering the establishment and governance of each body, its existing relevance, feasibility, effectiveness, levels of accountability to government, expenditure, income, whether the work could be more efficiently or more effectively carried out within government proper or by some other means, determine governance and best practice in other jurisdictions, and to develop a mechanism for ongoing review. All laudable goals, which emanated into a report entitled Untangling Bermuda's Quangos, a review of Quangos in the Bermuda government, presented in October 2003, and the subsequent Sage Commission report presented a decade later in 2013. Madam President, this PLP government took the decision early in our administration, shortly after returning to government in July 2017, to have an, another look at the reports and their recommendations with a view to action some of these items. Therefore, the three managers of each Quango, the BHC, WEDCO, and BLDC, were asked to meet on a regular basis for the purpose of discussing ways on how a merging of operations could occur utilizing the recommendations of the Quango report as the basis for those discussions. These meetings resulted in the aforementioned operational changes. However, this was not the end, but only the beginning. Madam President, as mentioned before, in January 2021, the WEDCO general manager assumed responsibility for BLDC as the interim CEO. And throughout that year, Mr. Andrew Diaz, in his dual role, curated a draft strategic plan to merge the West End Development Corporation and the Bermuda Land Development Company into one new entity. This strategic plan was submitted to the ministry in June 2022. Credit must be given to Mr. Diaz and his team because throughout that year, he, along with everyone, was also managing the remnants of the COVID-19 pandemic. This strategic plan outlined the vision for this singular entity as the two Quangos shared similar objectives, mandates, skills, accounting procedures, and staffing levels. In that, it recommended that the BHC remain a single entity as it has different mandates, goals, and objectives. Madam President, this plan was submitted for consideration and was subsequently approved by the Cabinet in July 2022. This amalgamation is an opportunity to immediately effect some cost savings by reducing duplication of roles, combining responsibilities, and bringing a sharper focus to deliver on the government's mandate to control costs and operate more efficiently. The minister and his team then visited the respective staffs and boards of the affected bodies to inform them of the decision. Many welcomed the move and are looking forward to the future. Madam President, after these meetings, a team was immediately formed comprising of technical officers of WEDCO, BLDC, and the ministry to implement the transition. Over the past 2 years, the following operational activities have taken place to prepare for this initiative. Number one, creation and implementation of new identical union collective bargaining agreements for both WEDCO and BLDC. Thanks are given to our union partners, the Bermuda Public Service Union and the Bermuda Industrial Union, for being instrumental to ensure that their members and our employees move forward with us. Number two, job description reviews and internal policy assessments have been completed. Number three, merged WEDCO and BLDC servers and software, essentially running all finance and IT systems for both entities from a single location. Number four, the chief financial officer at WEDCO is now acting in a dual role for both entities. Number five, compiled the asset and liability schedule for both entities. Number 6, established a marketing and PR joint strategy for the new entity. Number 7, relocated key staff to assist with the transition initiative. And number 8, liquidators have been appointed in accordance with the provisions outlined in the Companies Act 1981 as the BLDC is incorporated as a limited liability company. Not all has not only has all this taken place, Madam President, but you may also recall in May 2023, this chamber approved the dissolution of the BLDC to ensure the seamless amalgamation of the entities. While it was the full intention for this initiative to be completed by January 2024, and I must clarify that operationally, this target has been met. The reason for this delay is attributed to resourcing challenges within the Attorney General's chambers. Now that the issues have been addressed and the bill tabled in the other place, the merger team stands ready to complete the consolidation once the necessary legislative requirements are concluded. Madam President, the newly named Bermuda Land Management Corporation, or BLMC, will manage all assets that both the formerly named WEDCO and the soon to be dissolved BLDC owned. Soon, the debate on the West End Development Corporation Amendment Act 2024 will commence in the other place and then transition here to this chamber. But before any conversing begins, I wish to take the time to clearly state there will be no job losses resulting from this merger. Over the course of this journey, several staff have separated from the company for various reasons, and those posts have not been filled but assumed by the remaining personnel from the other entity. Once the companies have amalgamated, a full staffing review will occur and adjustments will be made as necessary. Madam President, this has been a long and arduous journey. I'm advised that if other government entities wish to pursue a similar course of action, the process employed in this exercise would be an excellent template to follow. Thank you, Madam President.
And thank you, Senator Robinson. Before I go on, I would just like to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Minister, Lieutenant Colonel David Birch, in the gallery this morning, as well as his policy analyst for the Ministry of Public Works, Mr. Stephen Simons. Welcome to you both. The second statement is in the name of Senator Emily Dill, Junior Minister for National Security, on summer safety. Senator Dill, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, today I wish to encourage senators and the members of the public to join forces with the Ministry of National Security and the government as we aim to have a happy and safe summer. The sun is officially, as our forebears would say, across the line, and we are all excited to once again experience all that beautiful Bermuda has to offer during the summer. As the weather continues to warm up, I would like to provide a few key reminders, safety tips, and words of caution to help us navigate the season as we all spend more time outside. Madam President, beaching and boating is a favorite summertime activity for many of us. In order to preserve safety, it is important that we exercise heightened caution when our outdoor activities take us near or on the water. Beachgoers are encouraged to heed the signage and advice given by the Department of Parks and our lifeguards. Parents are reminded to be particularly attentive to young children in and around the water. And older children should be taught good beach etiquette to ensure that beach days are safe and enjoyable for all beachgoers. Madam President, the Royal Bermuda Regiment Coast Guard will provide full-time maritime coverage over the summer months. The boating public can expect to see the Coast Guard on frequent inshore patrols. I implore residents to respect the authority of the Coast Guard, and I remind everyone that they have the power to issue tickets and arrest any individual suspected to be in contravention of the law. Madam President, it is important that boat operators check their vessels before every trip by ensuring that safety equipment is functioning. Whenever boaters plan to be out on the water, they should make sure that someone on land knows where they are headed and when they can be expected to return. Boat operators should not allow their vessels to be occupied by more people than the safe capacity of the boat, and life preservers should be available for everyone on board. Taking these simple steps will allow boaters to truly relax and be safe on their Sunday fun days. Madam President, speaking of boating, I want to remind boaters and watercraft operators to control their vessels responsibly and without the impairment of drugs or alcohol. We all know that operating a vessel requires skill and that one must pay attention to what is going on out on the water. I implore boat operators to be responsible and moderate their consumption of alcohol while in control of any marine vessel. Madam President, just as I am asking the public to exercise caution on the water, I also want to remind us to be cautious as we travel on the road. Summertime in Bermuda means an increase in social gatherings and an increased amount of people traveling on our roads, including our beloved tourists and returning university students. We are all aware of the devastating effects of drunk driving. Alcohol impairs our ability to safely operate vehicles and increases the danger to other road users. Accidents involving serious property and personal injury can and regrettably do occur. Madam President, I encourage people to enjoy their social gatherings and activities, but please do not drink and drive. Madam President, the Bermuda Police Service will continue with their roadside sobriety testing program. Motorists can expect to be stopped along their journey and questioned on their alcohol intake by the police. To avoid the legal consequences of drinking and driving, please use a designated driver, taxi, or other prearranged transportation for your travels. Madam President, my final cautionary message today is one of personal responsibility. It is hot outside, and hotter temperatures can sometimes mean hot heads and short tempers,
Yes.
particularly when alcohol consumption is involved. It is the personal responsibility of each of us to ensure that we do not allow a small annoyance to inflate into an incident of life changing domestic violence or antisocial behavior. As we move about and participate in the liveliness of the summer season, I encourage us to promote the friendliness and respectfulness for which Bermuda is known. Madam President, it is my hope that this summer will be memorable for us for all the right reasons. I look forward to our people thoroughly enjoying Conti games, cup match, beach parties and barbecues, family gatherings in the parks and beaches, camping, outdoor concerts, and all those activities we like to do during the summer. Let us make this summer one of watching our children master new skills, spending quality time with our loved ones, and exploring all that our island home has to offer. Let us do all this with a mindset of individual responsibility and safely. Madam President, we must all work together to keep Bermuda safe over the summer. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Item number 9, introduction of bills. There are none. Item number 10, the first reading of public bills. The following public bills have been received from the Honorable House of Assembly and are now read for the first time. Their titles are respectively National Heroes Act 2024, and that's in the name of Senator the Honorable Owen Darrell, the Minister for Tourism, Culture, and Sport. And the second is the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024, and that's in the name of Senator Ariana Hudson, the Junior Minister of Finance. And the third is the Motor Car Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024, and that's in the name of Senator Reverend Dr. Emily Dill, Junior Minister for Transport. Item number 11, the first reading of private bills, there are none. Item number 12, question period. Senators, we will now entertain questions on the statements that have been given. And the first one, I'll take them in the order in which they were presented. The first one was an update on the amalgamation of the West End Development Corporation and the Bermuda Land Development Company. That was presented by Senator Leslie Robinson. Would any senator care to ask questions on the statement? Senator Robinson? OBA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning to my colleagues and to the listening public. Just really quickly, I wanted to ask the junior minister if she would be able to expound on the delay, the resource and challenges within the Attorney General's chambers, and if we could get a bit of an explanation of what these delays were and how they were resolved. Also, there is a mention of no job losses from the merger, which is a very specific language. But near on that same page 4, we see once companies have amalgamated, a full staffing review will occur and adjustments will be made as necessary. So it is ensuring that there will be no job losses during the merger or as a result of the merger. However, there is going to be a review. So I just wanted to ask, if this government can ensure that there will not be any job losses, as it's saying in the statement, or will it say it won't be any job losses until these jobs are reviewed? So that's my two questions.
Thank you. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this statement? Yes. Opposition Leader, Senator Robin Tucker, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam President. My question comes from page number 4. So the first bullet point does mention that the Chief Financial Officer at WEDCO is now acting in a dual role for both entities. So I'm just wondering what that structure will look like. Will there continue to be sort of one person in that capacity, or is it envisioned that there will be an additional hire for that type of leadership? And the second question I have also relates to jobs, and I just wanted to know if there's going to be retraining, retooling for staff, particularly where there are overlaps in skills and things like that, where one position is no longer, you don't need multiple people for that one position because of the merger. So have they considered, or is there training that's being done to upskill staff in preparation for other positions even? Thank you, Madam President.
Your two questions. And would any other senator care to ask questions on this statement? Hearing none, then we will wait for the response to the questions.
First of all, Madam President, with respect to, I'm going to go to the question about job losses. No one has been hired in any of the vacant positions. One person from the CFO, you had asked. That was another question, Madam President, that was asked. This is how we are going to be efficient, to be going through efficiency and savings by just having one person for the CFO position. And there was a question about training. There is training that is occurring. Also, Madam President, just a little bit more about the vacancy positions that we have are being covered by existing staff at the moment. And then with respect to I think it was about the Attorney General chambers, Madam President, at this point, I think it'd be best, we're not commenting too much on the Attorney General's chambers. There is some hiring that is going on there, but at this point, we're not commenting on that. It's not part of our ministry.
Senator Robinson, is that?
Yeah, Madam President, I've answered all the questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Robinson. We will then move on to the second statement. And that is the statement that was given by Senator Dr. Emily Dill, Minister of National Security, and that was on summer safety. Would any senator care to ask questions on this? Senator Dwayne Robinson, UBA, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just because they were mentioned within this statement, I just was wondering if we could get a brief update on the situation with lifeguard staffing and how that is coming along, and will we see all the beaches staffed adequately for the safety of people who are enjoying them? And also, we know that the Bermuda Police Service has had reductions in their budget and has a bit of manpower issues. So I'm just wondering how confident the junior minister is that they will be able to properly maintain road safety, police road safety, and also manage antisocial behavior, because we've seen an increase in both. So I just wanted to have that concern addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other senator care to ask questions on this statement? Hearing none, then it's over to you, Senator Emily Dill.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Robinson, for the questions that you've asked. I know that there has been an increase with regard to the lifeguards, but in order to give you a comprehensive response to the questions that you've asked today, I would ask that you send them to, and I will provide for you both a written and verbal response at our next meeting.
Thank you, Senator Emily Dill. We will now move on to the next item, and that is the orders of the day. And the first order of the day is the third reading of the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024 in the name of Senator Ariana Hudson, Junior Minister for Health.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Bermuda Health Council Amendment Act 2024 be now read a third time.
Would any senator care to speak on the third reading? No. Or object, sorry.
Yes, Madam President, we object.
Two. Sorry. Senators, you need to voice your objection.
Madam President, we object to the third reading of this bill. We object to the entire, we support the amendment, but we object to this bill in its totality.
I've heard two. All three object. They're still objective to. There are three. There are three objections.
Yes, I also support the objection of the opposition leader.
Senators, I just needed to confirm that there are three objections, and therefore they're open to the floor.
I object, Madam President.
Standing order. Yes, but who do I do it? Is it them? Yes. Senators, standing order 35 comes into play, and therefore when there are three objections, we need to take, we carry it, or we'll carry it. All right. We can carry it over to the next day of meeting. But if you want to, you're going to suspend. Minister, did you want to speak?
Thank you. Madam President, I'd like to move that we suspend Standing Order 35 and move straight to the next step and take a vote on this matter, please. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister. Senators, just to be reminded of what usually happens when there are three objections. We either go to a vote unless the opposition, the government decide to suspend 35. As 35 has been suspended, then there's a motion. A motion has been presented by government to suspend, and therefore we'll have a division now.
Senator Tucker?
Ms. Beal, can you just clarify the ayes and the nays, please?
Okay, so the motion is to suspend Standing Order 35. So if you're in agreement with suspending Standing Order 35, you say aye.
No, nay.
Senator Dwayne Robinson,
Nay.
Senator DeCudo,
Nay.
Senator Darrell,
Yes.
Senator Hodgson,
Aye.
Senator Simmons,
Aye.
Senator Dill,
Aye.
Senator Leslie Robinson,
Aye.
Senator White,
Nay.
Senator Bell,
Aye.
Madam President.
Nay. It's two. Yeah. Okay. So my
With a vote
is-
of 6 to 5, the motion passes.
Senator Hudson, it's over to you.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Then I move that the bill do now pass.
Are there any objections? Through this
Yes, Madam
again.
President, we object to the bill passing. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, I object.
There are 4 objections.
I object.
I object.
Oh, God. I don't know what I'm supposed to vote on.
What a day.
I know.
Okay, Senators, this is a motion to pass the bill. So if you're in favor of passing, you say aye. If you're not, you say nay. Senator Tucker,
Nay.
Senator Dwayne Robinson,
Nay.
Senator DeCudo,
Nay.
Senator Darrell,
Yes.
Senator Hodgson, Senator Simmons,
Aye.
Senator Dill,
Aye.
Senator Leslie Robinson,
Aye.
Senator White,
Nay.
Senator Bell,
Nay.
Madam President.
Aye.
With a vote of 6 to 5, the motion to pass the bill passes.
Senators. So Senator Ariana Hudson, will pass your bill.
Thank you, Madam President.
Christ. Oh, go to this one now. Senator Hudson, we now move on to the second item on the order paper, and that is the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act, and that's in the name of Senator Ariana Hudson. And before she takes the presents her bill, I would just like to acknowledge Vanus Memari from the Registry Office. Welcome to you. She's in the chamber. Senator Hudson, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. The bill before the Senate is the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024. This bill amends the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Act 2024 and the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Number 2 Act 2024 to allow for the payment of annual corporate regulatory fees in 2024 by exempted and overseas entities, as was intended and communicated since the announcement of these fees in the 2023-2024 budget statement. Madam President, members will recall that on the 13th of March, 2024, the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Act 2024 and the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Number 2 Act 2024 were passed in the Senate. In order to include corporate regulatory fee revenue in the 2023-2024 budget as forecast, the 2024 Act took effect from the first reading in the House of Assembly on February 9, 2024, with the written consent of the Governor pursuant to Section 2.1 of the Provisional Collection of Revenue Act 1975. Madam President, the 2024 acts aligned corporate regulatory fee payment deadlines for each type of entity with the existing annual fee deadlines specifically set for exempted and overseas entities by January 31st and for local entities by March 31st. Given that the effective date of the 2024 acts fell after the payment deadline for exempted entities, this bill clarifies and allows for an exceptional payment deadline for exempted entities for the year 2024, as was intended and communicated since the announcement of these fees in the budget statement in support of the estimates of revenue and expenditure 2023-2024. Madam President, this bill amends the commencement date of the 2024 acts to 1st of January 2024 and amends the payment deadline for 2024 only to the 31st of March for all entities or such other date determined by the registrar and published in the official gazette. The bill further validates any payments received from overseas or exempted entities prior to the amendment of the payment deadline. Madam President, the Accountant General has confirmed that upon the passage of this amendment, an accrual will be recorded to recognize the corporate regulatory fee revenue for the fiscal year 2023-2024. Madam President, the Bermuda Business Development Agency Legal Focus Group has been consulted on this bill and has no objections. Madam President, as a reminder to the Senate, the new regulatory fees are to be levied on all entities on Bermuda's corporate register, in respect of which the Registrar of Companies has regulatory, supervisory, and compliance oversight. The driving force behind the introduction of these new regulatory fees is the expansion of the role performed by the Registrar of Companies in recent years, which has resulted in the need to hire significant numbers of additional skilled personnel and enhance infrastructure. Madam President, the regulatory fee applicable to exempted and overseas entities is set at $500 Bermuda payable annually, and that for local entities is set at $150 Bermuda, which is also payable annually. The introduction of these regulatory fees is expected to add approximately $6 million to the public purse each year. Madam President, in summary, this bill simply clarifies and allows for the 2024 corporate regulatory fees due from exempted and overseas entities to be payable as intended in the 2023-2024 budget statement. Madam President, with those brief remarks, I now present the bill entitled the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024 and welcome comments from other members. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Ariana Hudson. Would any senator care to speak on this bill? Yes, Senator Dakota, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. If you'll recall, the One Bermuda Alliance supported the original act for all the reasons stated by the junior minister. And we support this amendment. It's important to get some of these details right. We do have a little reservation of the sorts of what I would call sort of administrative mistakes coming through. And while we appreciate that no process involving humans is perfect, and these things can and do happen, and of course this is the sort of process we have to fix it, we do feel that in aggregate over the year we have seen perhaps a few more of these than we would like to see, and I hope that the government is able to appropriately resource the relevant departments with the appropriate expertise to get these things right more likely than not the first time. But on this instance, of course, we are happy to support as stated. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Dakota. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator John White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to say that I support this bill. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator White. Would any other senator care to speak on the bill? Hearing none, then it's over to you, Senator Hudson. You have support for your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'd like to support those who did support this bill this morning. And so I move that the bill entitled the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that Standing Order 26 be suspended in respect to this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill entitled the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the bill do now pass.
It has been moved that the bill entitled the Registrar of Companies Annual Corporate Regulatory Fees Amendment Act 2024 do now pass. Is there any objection to that motion? The bill is passed. Thank you, Senator Ariana Hudson, and thank you, Senators, for your support of the bill. We're moving on now with the next item on our agenda, and that is the second reading of the Motor Car Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act, and that's in the name of Senator Emily Dill, the Junior Minister for Transport. Senator Dill, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Motor Car Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Is there any objection to the second reading? No objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, the bill for consideration before the Senate today is the Motor Car Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024. This bill proposes an amendment to the Motor Car Act 1951 with the specific aim of increasing the permissible dimensions of electric and hybrid private motor cars. Madam President, the ministry's 2022 Throne Speech Initiative outlines a policy to phase out the sale and importation of internal combustion engine or ICE vehicles by 2035. Transportation is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions globally, and reducing or eliminating these emissions will not only lessen Bermuda's impact on global emissions, but also enhance local air quality. During the consultation process for the initiative, a prominent concern was the availability of electric and hybrid vehicle models. As the world rapidly transitions to zero-emission vehicles, such as electric vehicles, Bermuda has faced challenges in accessing these models due to countries with larger markets being prioritized by vehicle manufacturers. Madam President, the car dealership industry has repeatedly expressed concerns about the shortage of such vehicles due to market availability to Bermuda, and has called for larger vehicle sizes for electric and hybrid models. BETA, or the Bermuda Auto Dealers Association, had requested 180-inch by 74-inch, an increase of 5 inches in length and 3 inches in width. This would have allowed an additional 32 car models to be purchased. The legislation allows the car size to be 176 inches by 72 inches, or an increase of 1 inch in length and 1 inch in width. This would allow 11 new and additional models in the island. Whilst we understand the desires, we seek to strike a balance, as it is important to note that as technology advances and the production of EV batteries becomes more efficient, these batteries are expected to become both more efficient and more compact. Consequently, the need for larger EVs and hybrid vehicles may diminish and may even potentially allow for a reduction in vehicle size requirements in the future. Madam President, electric vehicle or EV dimensions are partly determined by the size of the battery units. Battery energy density over the past decade has mostly focused on increasing vehicle range. Therefore, the frequency of recharging has decreased over time. Many EVs now manufactured have a range between 250 and 300 miles when fully charged. The increased range is directly linked to larger batteries, which has led to larger EVs to accommodate the batteries. The size increase could mean fewer EV vehicle model options available for the local market due to the current statutory specifications. Hence, the majority of the EV models available on the island are now slightly either too long or too wide for Bermuda. Without change, this inhibitor could prevent the intended transition to zero-emission vehicles and also slow Bermuda's progress in reducing exhaust emissions and the many other benefits of the adoption of EVs. Madam President, hybrid vehicles play a crucial role in the transition to zero-emission vehicles by bridging the gap between traditional internal combustion engine or ICE vehicles and fully electric vehicles or EVs. By combining a conventional engine with an electric motor, hybrids offer improved fuel efficiency and lower emissions compared to ICE vehicles. This dual powertrain allows consumers to experience the benefits of electric driving, such as reduced fuel consumption and lower emissions, without the range anxiety associated with EV models. Further, hybrids often serve as an entry point for consumers who are gradually adapting to the new technologies. As battery technology and charging infrastructure continue to improve, hybrid vehicles are paving the way for the broader acceptance and adoption of fully electric or zero-emission vehicles, thereby accelerating the shift towards a sustainable transportation system. In summary, the Motor Car Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024 represents a forward-looking adjustment to existing regulations designed to support the ministry's 2022 Throne Speech Initiative to phase out the sale and importation of internal combustion engine vehicles by 2035 to transition Bermuda to environmentally friendly vehicle technologies. It reflects a commitment to adapting our legal framework to keep pace with technological advancement and the evolving needs of modern transportation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. And just to signal that we in the opposition to OBA, we do support this piece of legislation. I just have a few concerns to bring to the junior minister and indulge her answers. With the additional measurements that are being requested, are we sure that that is going to open up the industry the way that they're looking for? Because we don't really want to be coming back and constantly kind of amending the size and weight. So is there any additional research from governments and on where that size may be going as far as the electric vehicles are concerned? And obviously we see electric vehicles and other vehicles getting larger and the roads are remaining the same size. So just any sort of look at infrastructure and how we'll be able to accommodate vehicles, as it seems they continue to increase in size. But as you know, Bermuda roads are not increasing in size. So, just to manage potential road safety risks. And just we heard that the 2035 date is set for, a fully electric, vehicles on the island. And I just wanted to emphasize the need to kind of verify whether or not our electrical grid, whether or not our infrastructure is moving at that pace to make that particular market level. And also with the EVs, we assume that when the industry has come to government and said, this will help us bring in additional models, there is perceived that there may be a spike or a boom in the purchasing of electric vehicles. And are we as an island prepared for a potential rise and spike in the amount of electric vehicles that are on the road? As far as the charging stations were mentioned and the electrical grid was mentioned, but what are the strides on the back end of this to make sure that if there is a spike, because there's a lot of new models being brought in, that we can sustain that as an island? So as a government, we would hope that the responsibility of not just passing this particular legislation, but the foresight to make sure that it doesn't have any adverse unforeseen consequences put forward. So I just wanted to get a bit of insight from the junior minister on that. But otherwise, we are supportive of this bill.
Sorry, thank you, Senator Dwayne Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak on this bill? Hearing none, it's over to you, Senator Dill.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Robinson, for those questions. And it's really interesting because in certainly researching this and understanding the industry and how it continues to evolve, that strangely enough, what we are finding of the need to accommodate the size of the batteries, when in actual fact, what we are finding is that as technology increases, that the battery sizes are intended to decrease. So at this point, we don't see that as a problem, and certainly we this growth is incremental. So as opposed to having introduced 32 new models, that there will just be 11 new models that will become available, and we believe that we will be growing incrementally and able to certainly be able to what's the word I want to use? We certainly would be able to accommodate the needs of the increase in the purchases of electric vehicles. Thank you. Okay.
Yes. So Senator Dill, then you want to
Okay.
pass your bill.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah. I now move that the bill entitled the Motor Car, Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections.
Okay. Madam President, I move that Rule 26 be suspended in respect of this bill.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill entitled the Motor Car, Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024 be now read a third time.
Is there any objection to the third reading? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the bill do now pass.
It has been moved that the bill entitled the Motor Car, Electric or Hybrid Private Motor Cars Amendment Act 2024 do not pass. Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The bill is passed. Thank you, Senator Dill, and thank you all senators. Senators, I now need to suspend Standing Order 8 to allow Minister to introduce his bill. Senator Darrell.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, under the provisions of Standing Order 23, I move for leave of the Senate to introduce a bill entitled the National Heroes Act 2024.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I hereby introduce and read for the first time by its title, a bill entitled the National Heroes Act 2024. And Madam President, I ask that the said bill be set down on the order paper for second reading at the next day of the meeting.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The bill will be introduced for its next day of meeting. Thank you, Minister Darrell. Item number 14, motions. There are none. Item number 15, congratulatory and or obituary speeches. Would any senator care to speak on either of these items? Senator White, John White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to send condolences to the family of the late Terry Stevens. Terry, a good friend of mine, was a life insurance agent for BFNM for many years, and he very sadly passed away on the weekend. So I would like to send my condolences to his wife, Joan, and the entire family during this difficult time. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator White. Would any other senator care to speak on this? Senator DeCouto, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I would like to I would like to congratulate Jessica Lewis, who will be attending the Paralympics in Paris. This would be her 4th time in a row as a Paralympian representing Bermuda. So I want to send her congratulations and luck during her competition. I obviously also, of course, extend my congratulations and good luck in advance to all of our 8 Olympians, which I won't read out here for time constraints. I would like to send my condolences to the family of Dennis Otley, a constituent in constituency 25, and to his wife, Mrs. Cynthia Otley, and his children, Deanna and Dennis, at this difficult time. And finally, Madam President, I would just like to send support and let those in the islands of Grenada, Barbados, Cayman, and Jamaica, and all the other islands with this hurricane barreling down, either having barreled down or about to barrel down, to send our thoughts to them, as we know what that's like, and to exhort all of our fellow Bermudians to start your preparations early and please be ready for an active hurricane season. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator DeCouto. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator Dwayne Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just like to congratulate Dr. Karika Weldon and her company, Carry Genetics, on the work that they're doing in her Caribbean prostate cancer and whole genome pilot study. I know it's not exactly a topic that one would expect from a young man to bring up prostate cancer, but it's definitely, we're seeing more and more cases of younger men developing this, and I just wanted to encourage young men and old men to make sure that you do set up yourself for a screening and not wait until something goes wrong or you're noticing health issues. And I just wanted to commend her for getting the data on the Caribbean specifically, because we don't actually have that sort of data for us and those statistics. And just wanted to also thank her for that community meeting that she had along with the community and local stakeholders within that. So congratulations. And again, don't wait till something goes wrong. Get a checkup.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator Emily Dale, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'd like to offer condolences today to the family of the late Colleen Dagmar Dill. She is the wife of the late Sidney Dill, and she is a very, very well-known member of this community. She had 6 children who are also very well known, and her greatest treasure was her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and she was a mentor, a counselor, a disciplinarian to everyone, and just a true matriarch of the Dill family. She passed this past weekend with her children and great-grandchildren by her side. Miss Colleen, she was a devout Anglican and served as the president of the Guild at St. Monica's Mission for many years. And she was also a dedicated fan of the North Village Community Club, where her sons starred as football players. And one of them is now president, Mr. Shervin Dill. Stories have told how she washed the team's jerseys back in the day before we had washers and dryers, and she was famous and greatly appreciated at North Village Club for hand washing and hanging those red and white jerseys on the clothesline. Her trade was a babysitter, and she brought up numerous babies and adults in the North Shore Glebe Road area. She's well known, respected, loved, and she will be missed tremendously. I'd also like to offer condolences to the family of Mr. Gary Smith, the husband of Mrs. Sylvia Smith. Mr. Smith was very well known and was a devout Bible scholar, and we certainly wish our condolences to his entire family on his passing. On a happy note, I want to take a moment for us to offer congratulations to our weekly host, Mr. Gospel, Mr. Kelly Zulu, on his 61st year celebration as a gospel music radio announcer here in Bermuda. He introduced gospel music on the air, and he will celebrate 61 years on Thursday, the 6th of July. And we offer to him our sincere thanks and appreciation for all that he does. I'd also like to take a moment, Madam President, to offer congratulations. Just about 2 weeks ago, the AME Church Sunday School annual Sunday School convention was held at Mount Zion Church under the leadership of Dr. Shangri-La Durham Thompson. And it was really heartwarming to hear the reports of all 11 of the AME churches that are still about the business of pouring into the lives of young people and taking the time, giving of individuals, giving of their time to ensure that young people learn about God and learn to love God and their fellow man. And also, I want to also acknowledge this weekend, the AME Youth Young People's Department. They will be celebrating their young people in their annual iRock Awards, which celebrates teenagers and I just want to thank them for the work that they continue to do in this community. And last but not least, I want to celebrate Dr. Juanita Smith was honored this past Sunday at a concert that was held at St. Philip AME Church. And she is a young adult. She is an ophthalmologist who has a business in Bermuda, but she gives unreservedly of her time and energy to her local church, and she was celebrated this past weekend, acknowledging her outstanding contribution in this community. So I offer kudos to her and allow both the Senate chamber and the Bermuda community to be aware of the tremendous work that she's done and the thank you that was extended to her on behalf of St. Philip Church. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Dills. Senator Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to extend condolences to the family of Sharon Louise Talbot. She is a member of Bethel AME Church, but more so, she was a long-standing employee at Linda's in Devonshire, and she always greeted persons with a wonderful smile on her face. So we just want to recognize the family and wish them all the best. Her sister, Carol Smith, and the rest of the family. I too want to share in the congratulatory remarks for Kali Zul. Last year, we were amongst many that celebrated his 60 years in gospel, and the fact that he is carrying on even for an additional year, 61 years nonstop. That is just a wonderful feat. And as Senator Dill pointed out, he was the one that really introduced gospel music to the airwaves of Bermuda, and he's been going on ever since for 61 years. Also want to, and I know the minister will mention this about the Olympians, and we already heard about Jessica Lewin, but we just also would like to congratulate all Bermuda's Olympians, and we wish them well as they go on to compete. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Leslie Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak?
Madam
Mr.
President.
Minister Darrell, yes.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I'd like to congratulate first and foremost the United Dance Productions, known in our community as UDP, on an exceptional junior company showcase, Madam President, under the direction of a legendary dance director herself, Ms. Suzette Harvey. I'd also like to congratulate, and I'd like to call him my mate. We've had many conversations, and I was actually first made aware of his success and his qualifying for the Olympics through his mom, who's a friend of mine, and that is no one other than Mr. Janai Parenchief, who has qualified for the Olympics in the discipline of triple jump. So I'd love to see senators, if they haven't already, congratulate him on their Twitter later. Also congratulate to the new president, another one of my mates, new president of the Bermuda National Trust Council Board, Mr. Mark Orchard. You would have seen that was released and announced yesterday, and he's replacing Miss Alana, forgetting her last name now, but I want to wish him all the best. Congratulations to the continued celebrations, the 175th year of the Portuguese celebrations and their committee on a successful event this past weekend with the whole fun, which was for family. And it was a wonderful bookend to the week after the Department of Culture held a series called the Bermudian Heartbeats Lecture Series, which highlighted the 175-year history of Portuguese in Bermuda. And I was happy to be at that event. I'm extending best of luck to the Pacers Track Club, Madam President, who fly out today a team of 39 individuals. Actually, they went yesterday to the 2024 Flying Angels International Track and Field Championship in Toronto. Congratulations to the Bermuda Piano Festival, Madam President, a real triumph held recently at the Masterworks Museum. And finally, we have already congratulated the organizers of Carnival Weekend after we witnessed such a spectacular finale performance by Fire Rain. And there's the Daily in their article today forgot to mention him. And he actually performed at the finale at the tribute to the heroes, which you were at, Madam President. Thank you for attending on Sunday. And I must congratulate all three Bermudian soca stars who performed at almost every single party over the weekend. Fire Rain, a gentleman by the name of Pana Flex, and Mr. Photogenic. They are all incredible stars, and I wish them all success, much success, as they continue to improve their craft as creatives in Bermuda. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Darrell. Would any other senator care to speak? Hearing none, then I would just like to associate myself with the congratulations to Dr. Karika Weldon on her, certainly on the research that she's doing in cancer amongst males, because I think that not only for Bermuda, but also for the Caribbean. And we wish her well in that, because I think that's an area that has not been much time and research has been spent. So congratulations to her on that. I would also like to associate myself with the congratulations to Shangri-La Durham Thompson and my own comments. I would like to say congratulations to Mrs. Barbara Oswood, who will be celebrating her 90th birthday on Saturday. She was a nurse tutor at King Abbott for many years, and I think that she's deserving to be mentioned because she's done a tremendous amount of work for not only in the hospital, but for the community. With that said, then we will move on now to item 16, the adjournment. Minister Darrell.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me find the date. Madam President, I now do ask that the Senate adjourn until Wednesday, July 17th.
Thank you, Minister. Would any senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Senator DeCuto, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Some of us may recall last week, Madam President, there was some discussion of interests. It's a topic I'd like to get into a bit today. And as a reminder to those listening in, of course, you can go to the parliamentary website, parliament.bm, and you can find the forms allowing you to see the declaration of all members' interests. And I'm sure if anyone listening would like further information on how to do that, any member of either of the houses of the legislature would be pleased to assist them. There's a lot of information on there, including, directorships, investments, travel. And so I would urge members of the public to review those and decide their views on the interests of the various members. But I'd also like to give the listening public some facts that will allow them to draw some of their own conclusions about are their interests being properly represented, Madam President. Now, we just recently passed the Health Council Amendment Act, which is part of a piece of reducing healthcare costs. So I thought I would start off with the fact that in 2017, the Premier instructed civil servants to make a grant to Dr. Ewart Brown. In total, $1.2 million was paid to him as a rebate for MRI fees. Of course, the MRI fees were reduced in an attempt to reduce healthcare costs. So I think the listening public, the general public, should consider where their interests truly looked out for when that money was paid back to Dr. Ewart Brown. In 2018, Cabinet approved an $800,000 quote unquote loan to Savvy Entertainment. And we know that that money is gone. So, Madam President, was that in the interest of the general public? We know that between 2020 and 2022, a company owned by the Premier's fintech advisor earned $3.6 million through no-bid contracts in violation of government procurement rules and laws. Madam President, was that in the interest of the people of Bermuda? We know that for fiscal years 2023 through to 2025, $480,000, or as I like to say, nearly $500,000 in consulting fees were granted to the wife of a different fintech advisor to chaperone cabinet ministers around Dubai. Is that in the interest of the Bermudian public? Further, Madam President, the Premier, who is an owner of Hitch, has directed the transport minister to implement ride sharing, which of course Hitch will play a role in.
Madam President,
in the
Madam President,
interest.
point of order.
Minister.
That is impugning improper motive. Those facts are not true, Madam President, and I would like the member to withdraw that. The minister, the Premier has not directed the Minister of Transport to do anything of the like.
Madam President, if I may quote the Premier, what I've told the Minister of Transport is very simple. If the taxis won't pick them up, then we need to make it available for others to do so.
Madam President, that's not what he just said, though.
It's a factual statement.
Senator, I would like for you to retract the statement with reference to the Premier, your comment about what he actually said is
I will retract
cannot
the
be-
statement that the Premier has directed the Minister of Transport, but it is a question of fact what the Premier has said, and I would urge the listening public to make their own determination on how a minister, when spoken to by the Premier, might interpret that. Now, I have my interpretation, Madam President. My view is that the public should carefully consider whose interests are being served by that. And Madam President, a $3.2 million contract was awarded to a former PLP party chair to install solar power at the National Stadium. Financing was put in place by the government without the proper approvals by the National Sports Center Board, and with financial transactions not occurring according to that own board's financial procedures. And the project is still not complete 3 years later. Again, I would ask the public
Madam
to
President,
consider.
point of order again. The member is factually wrong and impugning improper motives. The project, as I've said in here, is partially complete. I've said it, it's on record. So for him to say it's not complete is wrong, Madam President. And this line of whatever he's going down is inappropriate.
Senator DeCouto,
Thank you,
You need
Madam
to-
President.
correct that particular statement.
Let me correct the statement, the project is still not complete, to the project is not fully complete, Madam President. And I ask the public to consider, have their interests been fully taken care of through those actions? So I add that up, that's $9.3 million of direct spending by the government. Now we have another $16 million have been spent on the Gaming Commission with no gaming. Is that in the interest of the general public? Recently, Madam President, the government brought a bill that was passed to allow the government to borrow money, put it in the sinking fund, and then spend it without any accountability to the legislature or to the people or through the budgeting process. I ask you, Madam President, is that in the best interests of the Bermudian people? All of these actions, frankly, make no sense to me. And my question to the Bermudian people to consider, to look at those facts, is whose interests are being served? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator DeCouto. Would any other senator care to speak? Senator John White, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be fairly brief as usual. The announcements this morning included the Bermuda Casino Gaming annual reports and audited financial statements. And when I reviewed the materials, I did read that the audit of the financial statements for the 2019-2020 year is the most recent year. Madam President, in my view, this is unacceptable. These financial statements are not complicated to prepare. In fact, they're pretty basic. There are no revenues, for example. The majority of expenses are paid to staff, board members, and consultants. Madam President, audited financial statements are of most use when they are prepared on a timely basis. I am a supporter of strong governance, whether it be for government enterprises or private enterprises. In fact, I think government should be a leader in strong governance, a role model for all organizations. Over 16 million has been paid by taxpayers since the first year in 2015. With controversy in our community regarding the Gaming Commission, I think it is especially important that the audited financial statements are presented to the Senate on a timely basis. Taxpayers have a right to know how their funds have been spent. So as we sit here in July 2024, the fact that there are no audited financial statements for the 2020-21 year, the 21-22 year, or the 22-23 years, to me is unacceptable. So I would strongly recommend that these be audited as a matter of some importance. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator John White. Would any other senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Senator, sorry, Dwayne Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just wanted to take my time to highlight the need for us to, or the need for me to kind of urge the government to respond to the increase in road collisions that are happening. We have gotten to a point now where we are seeing almost 6 to 8 collisions a day. And it is just, in my opinion, completely unsustainable. I heard in another place that an MP from the government called it a crisis or a national emergency. And I would like to support and echo that statement, that it is indeed a national crisis, and that we have a toxic road culture here in Bermuda that is embedded from a young age. And I believe that we now need to look at how we can reform education, because a lot of education reforms currently going on, how we can reform our education to tackle that toxic culture from a young age, to teach young children from age primary throughout high school safe road habits and safe road protocols. Though they may not be able to drive, you can start a curriculum from a young age that just at least introduces our youth to the prospect of, how to cross the street properly, how to identify safe habits of driving. And I mean, I have a 2-year-old, and he will tell me when the light is red and I need to stop. So he can do it. I am sure we can work on a way to get that implemented into our education system, because policing is a part of it, but it cannot be the entire solution. We need to work on educating our students and young people, and also educating those who are not so young, because for a long time it was considered the young guys who were speeding and being reckless. But we are seeing all age groups being involved in collisions, all age groups being affected by road collisions, and all of us in this chamber and all Bermudians utilize the road. So it is something that I believe needs to be top priority, because the more that we continue to speak about it but not take any steps towards actually addressing it and partner with the community, more than slogans, more than marketing advertisement, but real sustainable capital spent to make sure that we have a curriculum within our schools that teaches this and reinforces this. So by the time they get to Project Ride, by the time they are looking to get their car license, they have had at least 10 years gradually increasing road safety knowledge and road safety protocols drilled in, that we could possibly see an increase and even reformation to tie in Project Ride and the licensing contract with that. We always have the concern that we've seen the police budget reduced over subsequent budgets. We have seen that the recruitment process is having its issues, even within the reserve police. And this is also something that I think needs to be addressed. How can we work with the police to make sure that there is an adequate resource to handle not just the spike in crime, but also the huge spike in road collisions that we are seeing? It has to be an identifiable breakdown, either between education and how we're policing the roads, how our people are being able to attain licensing. Like, we have to figure out where that issue is. And I call on government to make it a top priority to coordinate along with through the Ministry of National Security, to figure out and drill down on how we can, and bring in the Ministry of Education, how we can work on getting our people to drive safer, to also make sure that our roads have a fully functioning and up-to-date, fully equipped road safety unit. Because if we have a lot of cases that are not being solved, we have criminal cases that need investigation, how can we expect, our police who are on demand to properly, conduct road policing? So I really believe that we've seen a lot of money being found, I would say, or money being utilized for various community initiatives. But this is literally injuring and killing Bermudians consistently. And we haven't seen a budgetary response, a financial response. So I ask, we heard it from a government MP, but is this road safety issue a national crisis, a national emergency, to our Premier and Minister of Finance, who holds the purse strings to provide additional support to this particular situation? So I do call on, I've given suggestions because I know it's always OBA criticized, but we don't give suggestions. They have my suggestions. They can either utilize them or not, but we need to see a comprehensive emergency call for how the government is going to improve and educate and ensure that we have a change in our road culture, so that we can start to see a decline and a decrease. Because yes, I'm not removing the personal accountability of everyone who drives. Everyone who gets on a bike, everyone who gets behind a wheel has a personal responsibility to be safe. And I agree with the government on their calls to improve personal responsibility. But at the same time, the government has a responsibility to educate its people to force safe driving habits and enforce that within our education system. So we have to call upon the community to do its part and to make sure that they are stepping up where it requires to ensure there are less accidents, but we also have to ensure that we as legislators do our piece as leaders in the community and ensure that this is being tackled. So with those comments, Madam President, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Sorry, Senator Robinson, Leslie Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate Senator Robinson's comments regarding road safety. I do, however, want to get back to the point about personal responsibility. And I know he has said that, there needs to be more education, etc. But I want to go down the road of personal responsibility. And I think about even myself as I get in my car every day, and some of the things that I do, I know that I should not do or I can do better. So even, for example, I get in my car and I turn on the radio, and sometimes the music's blasting. And this time of the year, I love my soca music, and it's blasting. Yes, going down the road every morning in traffic, I'm got that music on. However, sometimes the music is so loud that I can't even hear when a siren, when an emergency service vehicle is coming. And then I got to stop short because I look behind and I'm like stunned. Oh my gosh. And this is just one example of taking some personal responsibility. And I'm sure we can all think about what we do. Sometimes, hey, you got the cell phone in your hand. None of us should, but we have, and we take it up. And we might be, doing some digits instead of many of our cars, as we know, we can be able to be hands-free, but sometimes we still pick up that phone. And then sometimes you're you're driving, you got your child, your spouse, your significant other in the car, and you're having a heated debate, argument. You're trying to deal with your child who's fidgeting or whatever, saying whatever. All of these things, Madam President, I'm saying, are things that can distract us while we are driving. And we are all guilty of it in one shape or form. We might be the best driver, but you get a call right away while you're driving, and it could be some type of emergency or something, and it can mess you right up. And so I want to talk, as I've said, about personal responsibility, and we all need to be better drivers. Also, when I was coming through years ago, I remember my dad teaching me how to drive, and he said to me, "Leslie, stay 2.5 car lengths behind the car that's in front of you." He said, even if a car overtakes you and pulls in front of you, slow down and remain at that 2.5 car lengths behind. And nowadays, we can look at it. I'm sitting at my gate and I just look at all the stream of traffic going both ways before I can even get out into the main road. And I can see we are not 2.5 car lengths behind each other. Again, and I'm saying it for myself, and I know that we all can attest to it. There are many times we drive and we are not 2.5 car lengths behind each other. Also, Madam President, even with speed, and we know what the speed limit is, and we all know what we feel that it's safe to drive before we think that we might get caught by the police. We know that. We know that. And again, I say to all of us to slow down, to think about the rules of the road and to try as possible not to have any distractions. Some may come up unexpectedly, but do not have any distractions, because again, it is all about our personal responsibility on these roads. And I echo with Senator Robinson. We have too many accidents on our roads, but I believe that a lot of it is to do with personal responsibility, Madam President. The other thing I want to mention as well, Madam President, is that I was a bit, I guess, I was a bit disappointed with Senator Dakuto's remarks, only because I don't want people to think that this government cannot manage money. And, you know, we can talk about governments. Each government, every government that there is, could be accused of diverting money one way when it should have been the other way. As long as there is an accountability for where that money's going. No, not all the time will every taxpayer agree with how the money is being spent or where it's going. But this government has been fiscally responsible. This government has produced a balanced budget. First time in a long time. And in some instances, we'll probably make surpluses. And so I don't want us to leave here today, and even the general public, thinking that this government is not fiscally responsible and is not doing what it set out to do, which is to ensure that every Bermudian is going to be able to live a better quality of life in this country. I get very concerned when there are allegations out there and saying this and that about where money has been spent. I could look and I can remember back when the OBA was in government, and all I have to do is say the word Jetgate, and we can all go down that path. But I won't do that. But again, let's just know that with every government, there will be concerns about where the money might be going. But this government is fiscally responsible. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Robinson. Would any other senator care to speak on the Senator Robin Tucker, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Before I get into the crux of what I did want to speak to, I would just like to make a comment as it relates to my Senate colleague's last comment. And I'll be very quick. I'm not going to sort of revisit anything. I will just say that Senator Dakuto, in his remarks, purely stated facts on record, and they're not allegations. So if anyone would like to check them, Google is available. All the resources are there. So I'll leave it there. Just encourage people to check details and decide for themselves. So what I wanted to talk about today is there's a well-known African proverb that states that it takes a village to raise a child. I asked today, Madam President, what happened to our villages? Many of our homes are in trouble, and we're seeing the symptoms of the sicknesses that are in our homes in the communities. We see children showing blatant disrespect and disregard for authority in our schools and on our streets, a general disregard in the community for adherence to basic rules of the roads, excessive speeding, dangerous overtaking, and the like. We see young ladies and young men partaking in substances, fighting in schools. We've all seen the video clips circulating. It is, I struggle to find a more appropriate word, but it is embarrassing. And the parents of those children should be embarrassed. I, as a person in the community, am embarrassed by the behaviors of some things that I have seen. So we see young ladies and young men, as I said, partaking in substances, fighting in schools and on the streets while their friends egg them on. Some parents are afraid to correct their children. Others have given up trying, and some don't even know where to start. And again, some of it is because the village has failed. Children are struggling with their mental health. One study conducted by a PhD student, Daniel Kavanaugh was his name, and psychologist Shawnee Baisden, as it was reported in the RG late last year, that study found that 31% of middle and high school students surveyed had moderate to severe symptoms of depression or anxiety. We should be alarmed. This is alarming, and it begs the question of what is happening in our homes and in the community. What's happening to our children? We keep talking about things that are happening externally. We keep talking about the things, the results of the things that we see, but we're not talking about the core of the issue. The community things that we're seeing are the results of things that's happening in our homes. We have in a lot of ways lost the plot. Some of our children are bearing the emotional generational scars of their parents. Some of our children have been abused or forced to grow up too quickly, and some lack the mental maturity to function appropriately as adults and with basic life expectations. So they do their best to try to figure life out and simply learn to survive, even if it means surviving is at the expense of somebody else. We have a problem, Madam President, and I simply today want to raise that alarm because there are things we need to talk about and stop sugarcoating and acting like it's not as bad as it seems. It's bad. We lack accountability and basic standards. When did it become acceptable, Madam President, for children and their parents to use profane language towards teachers or parents to their children? It simply is not acceptable. And it's not acceptable for us to see it and hear it and not say anything, those of us that know better. I get that we don't want to put ourselves at risk, but at the same time, what option do we have? Are we the village or not? If we're not the village, we need to stop talking about it takes a village because it's simply words and it's nothing more than that. When did it become acceptable for children to disrespect seniors or any adult for that matter? It isn't and never will be and never should be. Where is the village when they know these things are happening or see these things happening and say and do nothing? And then we're surprised at the outcomes that we get. Not acceptable. Some parents are working multiple jobs out of necessity because necessities like food and a roof over your head and electricity are high, and they must be away from the home to feed their children and to keep a roof over their children's heads. I understand it. I've said in this chamber before, my grandmother was a single mother of 6 children, and she made it work. She made it work after my grandparents, my mother's, the older children, after they got divorced, my granny had to figure it out. And there are parents, I am not saying that there are not parents that are not figuring it out. Those are not the parents I'm talking to. I'm not talking to the people that are addressing certain things. I'm talking to those that are not. So that whole scenario about I can't be home and all of that is not new. But there was a standard of expectation that we have let go by the wayside. Grandparents and the people in the village who looked out for each other, who now simply can't afford to retire as they once did. So many aren't even in the homes to keep a watchful eye over the children. So many children are left to raise themselves. Many of our teachers are hamstrung and can't redirect children for fear of parental pushback or from the children themselves. This is nuts what we're living with. Our churches, Madam President, of which I am a member of one, our churches used to be part of the village, playing a pivotal role in children's lives. But, Madam President, too many of our churches today are silent on the hard matters. We hear crickets from them. We have, and they have become so entrenched in their own situations, their own lives, or what have you, that we forget about the children and take the road of least resistance and ignore them because it's easier. We want to give people the sugar-coated, the nice things. Let's just love each other, sing kumbaya, and keep it moving. We have a problem, and I'm sounding the alarm. Some of us don't accept the gravity, Madam President, of the problem. But instead of sounding the alarm, we hear frequent reminders about the struggles of our ancestors, which sometimes appears to be an excuse for where we are. To be clear, remembering where we came from is vitally important. I am not saying it is not. But we, and I mean the collective we have been given a baton. And when it comes to, and it has come to us with blood, sweat, and tears of those that came before us who have endured so that we, our people, all of us can become educated, can gain status, can embrace a number of opportunities, achieve goals. We're not hindered from doing anything. That's not to say that the struggle may not be a little bit more difficult. How do we know that we can overcome it? The people that came before us overcame it so that we could have things a little bit better. So we need to take that baton, Madam President, and run and keep our eyes forward and keep running. We remember where we came from, but we've got to keep it moving. It may not come easy, as easy as it has for others, but there is nothing holding the collective we back but ourselves. The baton has been passed to us, and now individually, we must ensure that our attachment to the past is not greater than our commitment to the future. It's time for the village to wake up from its sleep and get back on its post. The health and future of our generations, our community, and our island home depends on each of us being a functioning member of this community so that we look out for each other, we hold each other accountable for raising ourselves up, and with the support of that collective village. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Robin Tucker. Would any other senator care to speak on the motion to adjourn? Seeing none,
Madam
hearing
President,
none.
I will
Minister?
have just a couple of brief words and just some observations, Madam President. And I would say that I've heard three very passionate motion to adjourn speeches this morning. One from the senator across the aisle, speaking and echoing sentiments regarding safety on the roads that we've heard from the chair of the Road Safety Council in another place. So that is something that I think all Bermudians can resonate with. We open up our WhatsApps and mornings, and it's shocking the amount of accidents and carnage that we see on the roads. And then if you are, I guess in some cases, unfortunate enough to be in some other groups, and you start hearing the stories as to how these accidents took place and whatnot, it's even more shocking and disappointing as to how people are traveling on the road. So those sentiments are definitely well received. I know my Senate colleague definitely did follow up and agree with some of those, and I know that the member in another place, Dennis Lister III, is doing all that he can with the Road Safety Council to to bring awareness, to step up patrols and other things of the like. Also, we heard a very passionate speech from the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader on values and her views on where they have been and what we need to do as a community to bring those good old fashioned values that we have been accustomed to in this island back. Then we had another. I wouldn't even call it a speech, Madam President, but I'm not sure what that was. I like to call it grandstanding from the other um, One Bermuda Alliance senator that we have also become accustomed to that, Madam President, and I guess the disappointment for me is that in a week where community and I gave a speech or motion to adjourn last week on all the positive things that we are seeing on the community and things that everyone is doing and all about people first. Um, the member from the other side had an opportunity to get up and really dig in to some of the positivities that are happening in his own community. Um, you know, we saw celebrations of the Portuguese in the Portuguese coming to Bermuda. We saw um, government departments put in, and some of his colleagues got up and thanked the department for the work they've done. There were celebrations at they call it the House of Azores, Casa de Azores, that he was at, Madam President, and just an exciting time of community and culture in this island. And he gets up here and he gives rumor, innuendo, and doesn't highlight some of the things that I would have thought would have excited him. So I had to push back on some of the things that was said, and I know the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader would like to think that everything said was factual, but it's the innuendo that comes with it. It's the smoke that comes around it. It's the rumor that comes around it, Madam President. And what we have in Bermuda is, luckily, the government does not control the police force. So when she talks about investigations and how we're looking into matters, there has been no wrongdoing in some of the matters that were brought up earlier. And as my Senate colleague said earlier, and we hate to say it, but there's only one political party in this country's history that has had a leader step down in disgrace, Madam President. And that directly comes from financial interest and whatever happened in their back room as to the reasons why that party forced him to step down in disgrace. So while one political party might like to try to throw smoke and mirrors and innuendo, I can tell you that the Progressive Labour Party is focused, as I said last week, with all the positive things that are going. And we will continue to focus on people, Madam President. We will continue to set budgets that benefit the betterment of programs and social programs so that the things that the One Bermuda Alliance Senate leader is talking about and upset about, she can see much improvement in this country with the budgets that the government is set to improve some of these programs. Madam President, it looks like we may leave Senate early today. I'm going to use this opportunity, Madam President, to go around to some of these summer day camps to see tangible and real results as to how we disperse the budgets and the finances of this country into areas that directly touch the community, Madam President. I'm going to do that. And I will send pictures. I'll even send some to the Senate leader so her colleagues could put on Twitter, Madam President, because I'm shocked that as leaders in this community and as especially a young man in this community, and I'm sure he would love to do great things in the community. The only thing I ever see is negativity, Madam President. And as I stated last week, I am taking a new approach, Madam President. It is approach of positivity, approach of highlighting the service that we are doing in this community, Madam President. So while some will try to get up here and speak on matters of interest and again these doom and gloom rumors and innuendo, Madam President, the Progressive Labour Party is going to focus on the work that we are doing for the community and the positivity, Madam President. So with that said, Madam President, I will wrap up my remarks, and for the rest of the day, and I'm sure, I love how some people like to put all my movements on Twitter. So for the rest of the day, Madam President, if you would like, I am going to get out in the community, and I'm going to look at the positive and see the positive work that we are doing in this community. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Minister Owen Darrell. And with that, Senate stands adjourned until Wednesday, July the 17th. Thank you, Senators, for your attention and work this morning.